Hi everybody. This is a really great pleasure to welcome you to Startup Ole and starting today having such a really incredible panel. The title is really interesting and catching, appealing, sexy, connecting ecosystems is a must after COVID-19. So we have here some panelists, some top 10 guys, internationals, and again, welcome to Startup Ole, 100 Digital, and thank you for being here. Thank you to the audience to joining us, and thank you also to Everest Foundation to be supporting and collaborating with us. And now, just saying all the success, let's have a really sexy panel. Be naughty, guys. Be hard, and let's bring the best of all of you. So I pass you the floor to the moderator, and let's enjoy the party. And always startup, ole!
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. I think I should have dressed differently if this was supposed to be a sexy session, but let's see what we can do anyway. My name is I'm the CEO of Ideals, a consulting firm that is part of Everest Group, which works with corporates, VCs, startups, and academia to build the ventures that hopefully will drive the energy transition. Previously, I've dedicated 17 years to launching ventures within big corporates and also as an entrepreneur. And I have the pleasure to be the moderator today. And maybe as a first thought to introduce the panel, I think if we look at history of mankind, it's actually that the speed of innovation has been linked to the size of the knowledge networks. And the knowledge networks itself have been defined by the reach of communication in space and time. And if we look at the centuries, we see how we sped up with inventions like writing, printing, and today, obviously, the internet enables us to have basically the knowledge of mankind at our fingertips. So theoretically, the networks should actually be global, but we all understand that in reality, we still face a lot of fragmentation. And so today, I think all that we are here probably would agree, I expect, maybe somebody will disagree, that connecting ecosystems is something we still have to work on. And I'm really looking forward to get your perspective on sort of what we can do actually to make our ecosystems even bigger, more connected, and being able to use collective intelligence even better than we are doing that today. So I'm happy to introduce our speakers today. First, we have Maria Calvo. Maria is the Director of Business Development and Customer Experience for Impact Hub Madrid in Spain. She actually combines in her career experience in digital as country manager of eBay, in the non-profit sector as country manager of Ashoka Spain, and then actually in corporate social responsibility and talent management for Grupo Vips. And in her current role at Impact Hub, she actually tries to connect the whole community to actually just use that collective intelligence better and also to offer value-added services to enable the growth of the entrepreneurs that she serves. Second, there is Jorge Gonzalez. Jorge, I'm happy you're awake.
Yeah.
Jorge started his professional life. He's consultant and investor in G2 Momentum Capital in Mexico. So it's very early for him. Jorge started his professional life actually being an entrepreneur himself. And after exiting the multinational software company he had created, he started to support startups, first serving them as a consultant with G2 Consultores, and then investing in them via G2 Momentum Capital. an early stage investment fund that has made over 40 direct investments in startups in Mexico and Latin America. So welcome, Jorge.
Thank you very much.
We have also with us Paul. He's the managing partner of I4E Ltd in Switzerland and UK, I understand. Paul actually combines geographical diversity. He was born in Italy, grown up in the US, and now he's been living in Switzerland for 10 years. With professional diversity, he started out interested in German literature and philosophy. That's actually quite strangest thing, especially the German literature. He worked for Silicon Valley companies in enterprise and open source software, and has co-founded, built, and advised startups in different, mostly tech-related sectors like cryptography, software as a service, smart home, smart city, and fintech. And he's a partner of I4E, as executive consulting firm, consulting, coaching, and investment business. I also welcome Sebastian. I'm very happy you could make it. These days, I guess, are very busy for all of us. He's director of the commercial office at the Embassy of Chile in Spain. Sebastian has a broad experience both in public sector and private sector. In the private sector, he had commercial and marketing roles in banking, services, and technology. And in the public sector, he has been trade commissioner in Russia and currently in Spain. So welcome, Sebastian.
Thank you very much.
There's also with us Anton Rodionov. He is investment director of InMind. He specializes in working with startups, specifically blockchain and artificial intelligence, launching projects from scratch and finding the best possible solutions to successfully bring these ideas to the market. And his current focus as investment director at InMind is providing fundraising and business development solutions. And he's also the co-founder of an online educational platform. There's also with us Algurios Spiridis, he's CEO of Anthology Ventures, based in Bulgaria and Greece. It's a business angel-based venture studio for startups, which offers in parallel incubation, funding opportunities, and curation to both investment-ready startups and early stage investors. He's also supporting other initiatives like Innovation Farm, where he helps implementing accelerator programs, as well as trainings for mentors and investors. And what he specifically mentioned about himself, that he loves learning by mistake, because that's what him and his team has really brought them forward. And as he says, by the way, I also work as a consultant. With that, I think we have a fantastic panel. I'm really curious to get your perspective on the topic connecting ecosystems. Is it a need, and what can we do to actually bring it forward? So I would first give the floor to Maria. So please, we should limit our contributions to around 5 minutes so that we still have a bit of time for questions at the end.
Okay, thank you, Bernard. Well, hello, and thank you to all the organizers of the Startup Ole for including us in this very forward-looking discussion. As Bernard was saying, we are a global network of entrepreneurship communities, and we are now present in more than 100 cities around the world. What we do is to connect and make it possible for all these people, entrepreneurs, and organizations to generate positive impact through their professional activity. And we do this by generating collaboration in our work spaces and building ecosystems that connect very diverse agents. What we all have seen, the COVID-19 has had a huge negative impact in the projections of economic growth. And today it's critical to focus on reactivation of the ecosystem, strengthening the support networks, and also investing significantly in fostering developing skills and capacities in people. And this requires that all of us make an effort in connecting and facilitating collaboration from all the actors. To do this, we need two things, basically, which I think are essential. The first is to have relevant data, and the second, share objectives, to have an agenda that really guides all the efforts towards this common objective. And that was these two things were the reason behind a collaborative effort that all the impact hubs in Spain have undertaken, and is that we have developed an index to measure the impact of entrepreneurial community ecosystems. Okay? We started the measurement of all the indicators in January, February this year, which was just pre-COVID context. Then during the confinement, we decided we would continue analyzing all this data, but obviously we had to include a different point of view and new ingredients in our approach. And one of them that came coming up was the question, why do we want to understand and measure the social and environmental impact of an ecosystem too? Because usually we measure impact when we need to obtain financing or when we need to be accountable in front of investors. But for this index, our motivation was to really understand what is behind social, economic, environmental changes in Spain. And then we could monitor their evolution and we can find the spaces of opportunity for them. So that was the goal with our study, to understand the present today and which are all the factors that really impact how an ecosystem is working, and then serve as a guide to build a better future that focus really on foster entrepreneurs and generate impact. So we had to dive deep in the relationships of all the agents in the community, but with each other and with the environment. And that's more or less what we did to make a living representation of these ecosystems, analyzing more than 130 sources of data, which we classified in 3 axes: the economic, business, sociocultural, and environmental. And through this axis, we made a comparative analysis of all the 50 Spanish provinces, understanding each region as an impact entrepreneurship ecosystem. Then we made a ranking with all of them based on the different indicators. And we detected several areas of opportunity in each of them, especially when you compare how differently they perform in these indicators. But also we saw an interesting number of correlations amongst very different variables. More than 60% of the data we crossed was correlated, which really confirmed how deeply the dynamics and interrelations within the ecosystems are and how important they are. We saw correlations between business density, active labor market, but also between cultural spend and the business infrastructures. So all of them are very, very tightly interrelated. So we really hope the results can help to reactivate the entrepreneurial ecosystem in different regions. And hopefully we can help identify which are the key agents in these networks and help design and implement initiatives that allow for that. Just to summarize, we have found that ecosystems that are most interrelated and have stable internal ties are the ones that collaborate the most and generate better resilience. And the same, the ecosystems that are best connected to the outside are the richest and the most innovative. So definitely we have to promote networks, program projects that allow the ecosystems to be more and better, because that will be a key factor in the recovery. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Maria. Well, let me give the floor to Jorge. So Jorge, whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you, and thank you to all, and thank you also to Startup Ole. It's a pleasure to be here, although it's very early in the morning here. I'm happy to be with you guys and discuss possibilities of interconnecting. Maybe schedules are the only inhibitor of connectivity between us. But as you can see, we can always wake up early and do the connections. So in terms of the connectivity between ecosystems in the whole world and in our country in particular, my thinking is that it has been happening for a while now. I do believe that the COVID, of course, have altered many things that we as an ecosystem do, as an investor, as a consultant, as a firm, are of course affected by this phenomenon, but it has not changed what I think is important for the connectivity of the ecosystem, and that is that the incentives are the driver of what's going to go ahead, and it's the incentives that we need to push forward if we want the ecosystems to be connected. And by incentives, there are many different. The first one is market sizes. We live, some of us live in underdeveloped countries, in countries that need the flows of capital to be present in order for the countries to grow. And that is in itself a big incentive for the ecosystem to be integrated and to be connected. There have been a few Mexican and Latin American companies that have grown big enough to be reaching the Series B investment, and obtaining big amounts of investment dollars in order for them to move. Now, there is not one investment firm in investment fund in Mexico that can carry on a Series B. They don't have enough dry powder, even if they want it. So in Mexico, in Latin America, if you want to be a very big company, if you want to grow big enough, and unicorn is a bit far away, but if you want to grow big enough, you definitely need outside investors. So that's a big incentive for our ecosystem to be connected. Of course, in Mexico, we always look north, and we always look to Silicon Valley, which is not necessarily the best way to go, but it's the way that we do it. Of course, there are a few European funds operating in Mexico, but that's very, very little activity there. There are very, very little activity from Japanese or Chinese funds in the country. So we're stuck with the gringos, as you probably know. And that's how it's been in terms of investment. So there's an incentive there. If you want capital, you have to look north. So you have to, connect your ecosystem to that of the US and the Silicon Valley and all that, in order for you to really grow to the big leagues. The other thing is market sizes and market, power. If you want to build something that is really important, you need to do it at least regionally. And that's something that all the South American countries know very well. For example, Chile, I don't know, you guys have 15 million or something inhabitants, right? When you build a company, in Uruguay, for example, they have 3 million. In Colombia, they have 40. So if you want to build something really big, you need to look outside your borders. And most Latin American companies understand that, and they build their business from the scratch in a regional design. At least they want to be the leader of Latin America. And in order for them to do that, they always have to move to Mexico at some point, because we have 120 million inhabitants, and that's the biggest Spanish-speaking market in the region, and it's a necessary step for them. So we, as Mexicans, are very much interconnected, because we are always a market that these guys want to go to. We've made, as an investment firm, we've made 4 or 5 investments in companies that are doing some sort of soft landing in Mexico. So there's a way of interconnection that needs to happen, and it's all about the incentives. If you need a market, you will have to move outside of your borders, outside of your comfort zone, and look elsewhere. So that, I think, are the big incentives for making interconnection happen. You need to the flow of capital, the flow of people demanding your goods and services is what moves you outside of your country. So I think interconnection is a matter of aligning those incentives and making it happen. And I think venture capital has a big role to play. I think the more international funds come to emerging markets, they're going to find out there's a pool of talent, and there are fantastic startups and fantastic founders, educated worldwide, by the way. We in Mexico tend to educate our best outside Mexico. So this pool of talent is huge, and it's therefore tapping if international funds, European funds, come into the country and explore this region that it's rich in terms of potential. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jorge. Very interesting. Paul, I guess it's your turn. So
thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. I'm also very happy to be in Salamanca in the new way that we get together, hopefully not for much longer. So I'm not speaking so much from a specific country. I mean, like my introduction, I was born in Italy. I grew up in the States. I studied German, so I lived in Berlin. I've lived in Milan and Amsterdam, all over Europe, helping companies and startups, move from the United States to Europe, which is an interesting challenge, which I'd enjoyed. For me, I really think of the startups that I coach. I do executive coaching, but in many cases, I'm talking to Chinese banks about how to do fintech or crypto finance or new kinds of investment types. They're giant corporations, but startups. I also work with small European startups. And I think COVID, and just to talk a little bit about that, has had a lot of negative impacts that we've all seen. I think we recognize, whether it's isolation and separation from family and friends and all those things. But I think that there are some positives to be taken, and what I see is there's an opportunity for, and I've seen many of the startups that are focused and use this time to work, to grow their business, to think about what they're doing, to develop their software. These are sort of moments when they can focus. There's not too many people going to accelerators and traveling. So I think there are some positive aspects. It still means that you need to reach out. And I think we have the technologies, and I don't know about the rest of you, but I've used WebEx for more than 20 years. I mean, I've been online doing things like this for many, many years, whether it's doing demonstrations or sales meetings. So I think we're accelerating more people, everyday people, not technologists like myself or people in technology, to use these kinds of technologies. So I think that is an ability for people to some extent stay connected without having to travel and to bridge further distances. And so I think there are some, to try and look at this with a little bit of a positive perspective. What I see, for example, is some of the startups, and I think of interesting ecosystems. I've coached now, and I'm coaching 2 startups that first came together in a hackathon about COVID. So these people, and there are 7 of them, have never met each other face to face. They started this idea. They won an award for a pitch contest, and they're getting investment. But these people have never physically been together. I think that's very interesting. I think it gives us an opportunity to think about how startups are and how they could evolve. So one person in Finland, one person in Hungary, one person in London, one person in Italy, and this sort of combination, this sort of virtual kinds of ecosystem. Obviously, it's not ecosystem that we're talking about, which are geographic, right? But I think that there is a way to think about this, and I think it's interesting for me also because I do a lot because I'm in Switzerland. There's a lot of crypto and cryptocurrency and crypto technologies. This kind of idea of being part of a ecosystem that is very global, separated but connected and very global. So I'm sort of going against a little bit, I think, the idea of geographic ecosystems getting together and sharing, and more almost into the single person as a networked individual. And I think that is, at some level, many startups and many entrepreneurs are single people that are then networked, and it's their network that makes them, that interconnects them. And I think those people are perfect also for what we're talking about, ecosystems. So they, like me, worked in Silicon Valley, but I lived for 6 months in Milan starting an office. And then I moved someplace else and I started another office. And I was always sort of connected, but this sort of a little bit more virtual relationships, I think, make the ecosystems that are geographic allow people to sort of move in between them. And I think that also helps the ecosystem. I think people, what may have also been described as digital nomads, right? So digital nomads as people that would live in Thailand and write code, and then they would move to Mexico, or they would move to Switzerland and they were writing code for companies, freelance or whatever. So I think there's a development, part of this development of COVID gives us the opportunity to think about individuals as networked individuals and how that fits into growth of ecosystems, and how you can thinking about how ecosystems can attract or be interesting for these virtual, let's call it, residents, right? So I think there are a bunch of different topics around, just to sort of separate it from the geographic, to think about how individuals are dealing with this and how individuals become part of these ecosystems can move in and out of them. I see many of them, just to wrap it up, moving out of Silicon Valley, going someplace else because they don't need to be there anymore. They don't want to pay the rent, and they don't want to necessarily be on top of each other and be commuting, and they could go live like me, I go up into the Alps. I have 4G, and I can work from the Alps, and I don't, I automatically get social distancing except from cows, so and sheep. Anyway, so these are just sort of thoughts. Since I'm not geographically focused, I think about how entrepreneurs and individuals are starting businesses, and how their mindset and how this situation can affect those kinds of the ecosystems you're talking about, and the way they think of creating their own ecosystem, whether it's a company or their network of friends and connections.
Thanks very much, Paul. I found very interesting that idea that sort of these virtual networks are actually an opportunity to then decentralize the ecosystem, no?
I didn't want to use that word. I've been working in crypto so long, I don't want to use that word. But Anton, maybe you can bring it up.
Thanks very much, Paul. Sebastian, it's your turn.
Thanks, Werner. Thank you very much. I'm really happy to be joining this panel. hopefully I could join at the last moment. I just want to start with thanking Emilio and the team by inviting us and having us in the Startup LA this year version, adapting to new reality. So congratulations and wishing them a lot of success during this week. Probably you're aware of what we do, but as per Chile, we are the Trade Commission of Chile, and we have presence in 56 markets throughout the world. I'm based in Spain for Spain and Portugal. And answering the question of the panel, is it important for us to start working or keep working on connecting ecosystem? Definitely yes, from our standpoint. We've been doing that for a long time, and I think Jorge touched on this before, mentioning we are far away from everyone. We're pretty much isolated as a country, and we are a very small economy. We're about 19 million already, Jorge, so a little update over there. But it's typically a testing laboratory for a lot of solutions, goods and services. A lot of people go there to try their invention, developments, and creation. And then, of course, we have a real need, a natural effort to export everything we do. So we are very well known as a country for mining and agriculture and agribusiness and so on and so forth. We're a very large exporting country. And this is mainly on our DNA today. So what happened 10 years ago, we were already very well connected with the world. We have about 29 free trade agreements with 65 economies. So we are really well interconnected. And it's really, I would say it's really advantageous to work from Chile in the traditional world. But then in year 2010, an accelerator program was created. It's called Startup Chile. And this is, I think it's a good idea of sharing this concept, because at the time there were not too many programs like this. Today we can see everywhere, even by regions, we have many examples. But it was truly innovative at the time. And it was looking not so much to export our creations and innovations, but mainly looking for creating a real change in our society. It was an internal based program. It was trying to get people mindset to change and allow for taking risk. We were a very traditional society at the time, so there was a big failure fear, I would say. So this program came mainly to change that and to prove to other startups that it was possible, and you could have good ideas, as you mentioned, Paul, not only in Silicon Valley. So we were trying to create the conditions for a Silicon Valley, if you wish. And now that's the term we're using. And Startup Chile has been the focus of a lot of investigations and research in Babson, in MIT, in the US. So it's a very small country with all these conditions. And after we created that program, providing $40K US dollars equity free with 1 year tech visa, co-working space, and all the networking you needed. And it basically attracted a lot of startups from all over the place. The first year, we didn't have any or a couple of startups from Chile. So it was mainly international people coming to Chile, and that has helped a lot to change this reality in the beginning. If we fast forward 10 years, we have about 2,000 startups that has gone through the program, and it has been extremely successful. I can give you a couple of examples. They're reaching 55% survival rate compared to the normal one. They have raised capital for about $1 billion US dollars. This is 18 times more money than invested by the government. And they have a portfolio of about 1.5 billion today. So I wanted to tell this story as an ingredient for what is happening today. Of course, COVID has accelerated everything, and we have access to technology, so we don't need to be focused, geographically focused in any location. So what we're doing after Startup has consolidated, Startup Chile, which was replicated in about 50 countries after having success in Chile. The next logical step will be to help internationalize these companies and startups, Chilean or international based in Startup Chile. So we are working now with a lot of ecosystems, creating the conditions for not only get installed in different countries, but also have this networking effect, which is what Paul was referring to, and it's very powerful. So we're doing, of course, congresses and Fair Trade. So we participate in Startup LA or Web Summit and all those kinds of big events, which is helping you to get recognition and position in the country as an innovation hub for Latin America. But we're also financing together with Corfo programs for getting established in different countries. So we have Go Global, which is aiming for Colombia, Peru, Mexico, and Miami, which is typically what we look at. As Jorge mentioned, they're looking north. We're also looking north. We can't look south. So we're always looking. Latin America is of course, our natural development ground. But then we need to go to Europe and Asia. So we need this ecosystem interconnection permanently. Not all the companies are establishing services and creating companies in all countries, but I would say that experience is showing us that every time more is happening, especially with the service and TIC sector. I think they're looking for some sort of presence in the market, be it by reseller or establishing their own operation. And networking is key. So for us, it's definitely a yes. We think that's the right strategy for a country and also for companies, where there are small startups, but they have already achieved some maturity and they can take this trip and this long travel of establishing in new markets. So that'll be my reflection for that question today. Thank you.
Sebastian, thank you very much. Great story. We're running a bit short on time, so maybe Anton and Julius, if you can limit it to 4 minutes, that would be great. Anton, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thank you, everyone. First of all, I think needless to say that thanks so much to Startup Ole, to all the organizers, co-organizers, to all the viewers, to everyone who is participating right now. Indeed, a very interesting and truly helpful, I believe, solutions and a moment to share, some of the ideas that we have. Answering the question, if coming straight to the point, I would say that, of course, yes. A simple. Well, I'm not that great at physics, so if some of you are good at physics, you may correct me. But it's about the forces and the opposite forces. So the harder the harder the force, the harder should be the opposite force to equalize it. Or that's the same analogy we can apply to, I don't know, wherever you want, spaghetti if you would like to, right? So if you can break one, if you say just one small spaghetti, you can break it with fingers, right? Imagine you take 1,000. Well, that's the same analogy when we talk about the ecosystems. It's about us uniting. It's about ventures uniting. It's about governments uniting and startups uniting together in order to really and truly prove and strive for the meaning of the word that they are about innovations. It's truly about changing something, either making an impact or bringing the solutions that will save people's lives or ease some of the things that maybe we do not like or think that we could facilitate it. In mind, I think is a good example of not to brag, and of course, since I'm coming from in mind, why not? Why wouldn't I tell that the in mind is good at it? So the idea of creating a sort of a global ecosystem where we are able to unite startups together with venture capitals, with the government representatives and the corporates, gives us an opportunity to really open the doors and get that access for startups to see what's outside of the their local market, what's outside of their national boundaries. It gives it gives kind of keys and access to venture funds to see what's outside of their market and see the solutions they haven't seen before. And I can truly support the idea of Paul and Jorge. They both said it, that the market is far bigger than what we think. And it's the fact that it's not only that we should aim at localizing something. But what I truly think we should not do is to try to be the copycats. When we try to say, oh, well, we are the Silicon Valley. Of course, we all love it, when we use it as a reference. But for instance, we had a chat with Steve Blank, and we had a chat with Tim Draper, and they were the ones who initially, they have a legacy of, the whole Silicon Valley, behind their shoulders. And the idea is that, look, if you're able to connect with everyone in this world, but still act on your market, knowing exactly how to apply it, then there's no pretty much boundaries in terms of how to scale it and how to grow with it. Answering the question, about the COVID, I think, well, and maybe it wouldn't be me if I just, didn't agree with, everything that was said. The COVID just showed us that we are really far behind in the game of technology and adoption and supporting. Everyone was saying, okay, we should support startups, we should support the initiatives. The COVID just exposed all of the weaknesses that we had. That's my opinion. That's my take on that. Because throughout all of the, all of the times we were saying, okay, well, we should stick to technology. And then guess what? When we were obliged to sit at home and start developing and figuring out how to do it, by using the laptop, suddenly we see the burst of startups and we see the burst of great ideas coming, to a point that, well, it starts to attract the attention. But my critics here is not only about that. It's not about that we were already far, behind in the game. My critics here is about that there are so many startups, and I can most definitely, you can mark my words on that. I can most definitely guarantee that if you ask me, I can show you so many startups that just need that seed stage and that are in such a need of just a small push. And it's not only about the money, it's about the coverage, it's about supporting them, it's about maybe giving them some sort of crutches so they could walk to a certain door and help it out. We are not only working for startups, we're also working for corporates and big VCs, and we're trying to tell them, look, guys, if you give us a try, we'll show you so many startups, you'll be amazed by that. I will bet everything that I have that you will say, wow, that's a thing. Why haven't I heard of it before? So my idea is to stop maybe giving huge grants of the governments that can sponsor millions and millions to a project that in a year will come back and say, look, we ran out of money, we need a fundraising again, rather than try to split this type of grant and provide a small push to the projects that will be coming from the developing countries, that will be coming from the countries where women cannot even be the entrepreneurs. This is what we're facing right now. We're in the 21st century and we still have to deal with it. And that's the thing that we're trying to do, guys. We're 7.6 billion in the whole world. Just imagine how many great ideas will we be able to generate if everyone had an access to it, and that everyone could see each other, at least even through the cameras, doesn't matter, but at least the simple access, that's the idea. And I'm just going to cut it down and probably come closer to the end, but on the fact of how to embrace it, on how to, what we shall do. Of course we shall unite, but not only that we shall unite, we should break the barriers in terms of, okay, well, we'll have a look at you when you're in the Series A, when you're in the Series B. Jorge said that there is even a problem with Series B. So how about we give a try to startups that are about to, bring something groundbreaking and maybe save lives, maybe, I don't know, bring something truly innovative to that. That's my take on that. So bringing innovations and bringing startups together and all the ecosystem together, a must-have option. It's about time. And I think we should have done it already before, way before. And it's not only about uniting with each other, but it's also about adjusting and knowing exactly what's the best fit for your market. Although, as Paul said as Paul said before, and I agree totally, you can connect with everyone. You can literally go international and connect with all the VCs, with all the government representatives. But if you know exactly how to apply this to your market, let's say the market can be Europe, Central Europe, not only the sort of country, right? But if you know exactly how it works, that's how you can work this out. I'm done. Sorry for going over the limit.
Thank you, Anton. Aurelius, I think we will run over a bit and still give you the 5 minutes. So hopefully the audience will bear with us.
Okay, I'll try to knock the last of them out. So I think there is no doubt that lately we're experiencing an extinction event for companies. And this extinction event is a part of a broader Darwinian process that started before the COVID, and it's accelerating today. Now, startups in specific are symbiotic entities. They need bigger companies, they need established companies to exist, both to differentiate from them and also to cooperate with them in order to get early adopters. So the startup challenge cannot be examined without examining the broader challenge that companies today have. And this challenge has to do with business model changes in many sectors like the transportation, the financial services sector, the education, travel, you name it, as well as government, because probably the government business model might need to change as well as we speak. So for this question, if it is a must, I believe it's a kind of a rhetoric statement. It is definitely a must, to have a cooperation between ecosystems. So the question should probably be rephrased if it's not a must, but what exactly is cooperation? What is cross-border cooperation specific? Now, because the topic is very broad and the time is very, very small, I would say a few things that I can talk better on from my point of view, where I'm standing. There's definitely more need for cooperation between angel investing ecosystems. And why angel investing? Because they are the first money in before VCs. So since angel investors precede VCs in this funding cycle, certain steps have to go and educate, incentivize, and help both angels as well as the organization, formal or informal, they belong to. So since this is an international problem, I think it's not a good practice to try to solve it locally, as well as the incentives, the practices, and cooperation method of angel investing entities, no matter if they work individually or in groups. So any incentive, any plan to encourage funding in early stages, I think should go under some kind of international harmonization process, because all those differences in the ways systems operate, they only create friction and more problems when investing takes place. And because you all know how difficult it can be to have startups, teams from different places. Imagine if you have investors trying to co-invest from different regions. And imagine how easier that could be if the investors from different regions had a more homogeneous way to talk, cooperate, and agree upon. That is not existing. There is a lot of theory, a lot of articles about what to do, best practice here and there, but when it comes to the point, the agreements are different. There are different legalities that makes things more hard and more time consuming, and of course, more expensive. Another thing that I believe is that governments are the catalysts there, along with organizations. So instead of a government trying to solve an angel investing or, trying to boost the ecosystem in a local way, it should try to solve it in a regional way by harmonizing practices and, of course, regulations. The last but not least has to do with tech transfer. And it's exactly the same problem with angel investors, with universities. Tech transfer needs more advancement in terms of harmonizing practices, making contracts much more easier and digestible for investors, early stage or later stage to come in. I'm talking about patents, I'm talking about all kind of licensing rights, and I'm talking about bureaucracy that needs to in a way, not only shrink, but become more uniform, because we don't have the expense. We cannot afford the expense of a learning curve every time. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. I think for me, I've actually learned a lot of interesting thoughts. We're already over the time. So maybe just one question and a very, very quick answer, sort of one sentence, sort of what is your advice? What we should all be doing tomorrow to contribute to this better connections between ecosystems? Maria. You have 10 seconds to think about it because that's the first one.
Okay, I think we should understand that an ecosystem is very different to ecosystems. So we should leave the ego at home and understand that it's not building individual relationship or helping this individual relationship for the entrepreneurs, but making sure that we are contribute to build these vibrant ecosystems, which is more understanding what really makes the ecosystem work for the entrepreneurs and for all the different actors. So it's not win-win, but win-win-win. All the environment wins.
Great. Thanks very much, Maria. Jorge.
Well, what I'm about to do is get up early this week and take a look at European startups doing pitches in Startup LA and everywhere, and see where can we move capital internationally to produce some movement in terms of connection. I think as long as investors connect startups, that's something that's going to happen.
I think it's certainly right that we need to strengthen the role of the European Union in this whole game. I mean, it's an economy as the US, and it's a dwarf in terms of investing in the startup ecosystem. That is, I don't think we can live with that in the long term.
Right.
So, thanks very much, Jorge, and thanks very much for being up that early and being that awake that early.
Yeah. Well, I did my best.
You did really well. Thank you very much. A pleasure. Paul.
Yeah, so I think what Jorge is doing, I think it's actually an interesting idea. I mean, I used to do it all the time from the States or back and forth, but I think that what people should do is actually find these kinds of programs, startup acceleration programs, and should listen. You know, the pitches, for example, should be more open, so someone could listen in on pitches, right? So I could listen in on maybe there's a language issue, but in some places I can cover 4 languages, so I'm good, I think, for a little bit. And so I think that's what people should do. They should sort of reach out and look at these other countries. I also think that the Maria, the company that you're with, the startup, what's it called?
Impact.
The Impact Hub. There's a local one in Bern, and they've joined, and they basically travel to other Impact Hubs. So I think if you're a part of Impact Hub, you can go or at least connect to other Impact Hubs. There's a network out there. I think people should just reach out and see what's going on in different places.
I find very interesting that idea that possibly maintaining the reach that we've suddenly discovered with virtual meetings and with virtual networks, and adding back in the personal component, that might be a big opportunity to push the international connection of the ecosystem.
Yeah, with a little bit less carbon footprint.
Yes.
No more flying.
Yes. Sebastian.
Definitely agree with you, Paul. I think for us it's obviously very important to provide this transparency and visibility of the ecosystem for lesser known countries in different regions. So I think we achieved that with this Startup Chile idea or program that I was mentioning before. So we were able to position ourselves, but then you need to bring the support, the last mile support for those companies trying to achieve there. And there is a long-term race here. It's not from one day to the other. So I think there's a big corporate and also public sector mentality change. You need to go through a cultural change process, which is not quick. And for that, I think one of the tools we have, other than congresses and fairs and that, is to work on the open innovation challenges. I think that's a good idea to foster change within the corporate sector and to attract and enable startups to be part of that change. So I think that's showing to work really well in the US for a long time, and in some way in the European Union it's also happening, probably on a slower pace. And I think we have a lot to learn from that as well as a Latin American country. And we need to integrate that a lot more than we are doing now. So I think that's a very key message for us, at least.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you, not the least because at Ideals, we earn our living with that open innovation approach, bringing VCs, startups, and corporates together. Anton, your last word.
Right. Be quick. Try to be quick at least. We've been questioning the same type of thing within Mind before, and the word COVID may be different and maybe a new word to what we've been like putting in our formula. But if you erase this word and leave a blank space, it's the same type of question and the same type of answer we will be like giving you how to do it or what is the next step. As I've said, the idea was to create an ecosystem with VCs, angels, family offices, corporates, and everyone. Currently, we have 12,000 registered already, like users, and those are the service providers, the investors, and the startups. But if we go beyond that, if we think globally, if we think really like outside of the box, the two main answers are, and the two main problems, it's like a chicken egg problem, like to be real, like to be honest with you. From one side, the startups should really like fight the barrier and really look for something outside, like for look somewhere beyond, question everything that they have, and don't be afraid to ask, and don't be afraid to look maybe silly or ask a question that they may not receive an answer for. The government, corporate representatives of the VCs, angels, and whoever from the other side should embrace their own vision as well, to think outside of what they think should be good for them, outside of those templates, outside of that. Well, we only invest in this segment, or we only are interested when you have a revenue. We only look for this. They should support the initiatives from all the smallest ideas to the biggest ones, and the startups should also unite under some sort of platform, under some sort of place where they could be heard, where the VCs could be heard, where the governments could be heard, and that is a win-win for everyone, because everyone will get their solution, everyone will benefit from that. And that was the idea that we were carrying it. Okay, erase the word in mind. I'm not trying to promote anything, but the idea is that you get a win-win for everyone. And isn't that what we're all here for? Is to get a win-win and actually not only make the commercial point out of it. That's the last part we're all thinking about. We're thinking about impacts. We're thinking about education. We're thinking about health, everything, you name it. And that's the truth. That's the spirit that we're all going and headed to. That's it. I'm done.
Thank you very much, Augurius. We have less than a minute left. So
I'll be brief.
Sorry.
Startups try to solve real problems. It's a good time for real problem solving, not any type of problem. 2, the rest of us try to find the friction point and do, the lean startup for startup players and ecosystems. Probably accelerate the accelerators. That's all.
Thank you very much. That's a great final word, Augurius. Thank you very much indeed. Great panels. Thank you all for being here. And I hope that our contribution to the ecosystem will be that we will stay in touch in the future. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day, morning, and evening to everyone. Wherever you are.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.